This week on Constructive Criticism, we discussed the new standard and the new decks from the SCG Open this weekend, as well as a topic on analyzing data and using it to improve at Magic the Gathering. There's a little bit of an issue with Casey's mic at the beginning, where he's much quieter than us. It is fixed throughout the episode, so I do apologize for the issue. We will make sure that it doesn't happen next time, but enjoy the episode, and thanks for listening.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Constructive Criticism. I'm your host, Spencer. I'm joined by my co-host, the man who wants to become a Ninja Turtle, Casey Blood.
Not anymore. Now that I've seen what the community is like, I don't know if I'm that interested in that anymore.
That was the greatest thing I've ever heard. But also, what's up?
The man who dresses up like a stormtrooper and dances, Michael Hinderrocker.
I'd rather do that than want to become a Ninja Turtle after watching the YouTube videos. Like, man, yeah.
To be fair, you both said that those, like, I don't even remember, it was like the lip sync battle and then the dancing stormtroopers. You both were like, that's the stupidest thing on the internet. And I was like,
it's the dumbest TV show that's ever existed.
Okay.
I stand by that.
Okay. Either way, I'm pretty sure what I just showed you is the dumbest thing on the internet.
That one just made me feel like either
kind of felt bad.
It felt cruel, kind of.
No, but it felt like bad, like for me personally, not just for the woman in the video. It was kind of like, you know, I don't know that there's space for both of us on this planet, so either I have to go or she does.
Oh wow, that's so cruel, Michael.
I mean, it's mostly
she started it.
Suicide threat, but
all right. Let's get started. You know who will never tell you have to leave this planet? That's Oasis Games. You can check them out at oasisgamesslc.com. You can get 15% off your first order by using the code CCMTG at checkout. You can get 5% off of every order by using code Would That Be Good at checkout. You can also, just go in, check it out. If you're local to Utah, I highly recommend playing tournaments there. It's the best place to both play and buy Magic cards. So check them out, oasisgamesslc.com.
don't wear a Ninja Turtle costume into the store.
All right, I'll have to ask you to leave. It's a security risk.
We're done with the Ninja Turtle reference.
Forever?
I mean, not forever.
God willing.
It doesn't have to be forever.
Can we make a death pact? Like the next person to talk about them just gets decapitated?
And I have a death pact that I can't talk about on the podcast.
That's great. Can we add one more?
I mean, I guess.
Do you want in on this?
Well, no. I just want a Ninja Turtle.
Because I'm sure that we can get you in on this death pact.
Only
It's not podcast appropriate, but you can be in on it.
Well, I only want a Ninja Turtle death pact. I don't care about your other death
What is
pact.
a Ninja Turtle death pact entail?
You cannot talk about Ninja Turtles on this podcast, or you just get decapitated on the spot.
Wait, would it like Ninja Turtles in general or the Ninja Turtle girl?
Both to be safe.
I think that he might be off of Ninja Turtles for life after seeing the video.
Because I have some Ninja Turtle socks, and those are pretty dope.
Well, don't wear them around me or you're going to get decapitated.
You can support this podcast directly instead of buying Ninja Turtle socks by going to patreon.com/ccmtg. We have 3 new patrons this week. We're super happy about it. We have Evan A., Matthias T., and Jesse G. And, yeah, I just want to say, like, how much it means to me when I get that notification that lets me know that we have a new patron. It literally makes my day every time. Every single time. And we're really excited to have you guys on board and to have that support. And we'll get you guys set up. I think we might do the Skype call in San Jose if we can. If there's internet there, that's probably where we'll do it.
Yeah, I feel like Friday evening might be the best timing-wise.
So we'll figure that out and get that out to our patrons. But we just want to give a shout-out to you guys for being the newest patrons. I think that I got some swag sent your way, so you should be getting that soon. And yeah, we really appreciate everything that everybody contributes, and it means the world to us. Hashtag always improving is the point of this podcast. Every week on the show, we want to be doing what we can to improve, and we want to share that with the community and with you guys. This week, Casey, we're going to start with you. How are you, hashtag always improving, and what does hashtag always improving mean to you?
So it means, if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. And it's about just kind of a philosophy of always trying to find some way to improve in Magic or just anything you do. Don't ever be complacent in where you are.
Yeah.
And
don't die.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
and also don't die.
we'll have a drinking from a
on a
straw
podcast.
tutorial later so that Spencer can always improve.
That's my goal for next week. Learn how to drink from a straw.
Yeah, when we run out of Sneak and Show episodes, we'll move to Drinking Through a Straw, the podcast.
Yeah, which is not as good, but
So
whatever.
what did you do to be hashtag always improving this week?
Well, sometimes you kind of have to learn the same lessons and do the same things. And this week it was kind of especially hard because for recent set releases and new standard formats, we've been mostly pretty far ahead. We do more testing than most people are doing going into the first tournaments of the format. So trying to not be dismissive of ideas people had and see what concepts people were working on that maybe we hadn't considered, or what interactions people were playing that were more powerful than what we were doing, rather than just being like, oh, well, yeah, we toyed around with something like this, but it just wasn't good enough.
Sorry. It blew my mind.
Anyway.
Is that your always improving moment this week, Spencer?
I don't even remember what mine was.
I'm-
We have to edit this out, so we have to be quiet.
It's like, was your reaction to it that was like, oh, it's something like this? I fucking didn't need to read that.
While we're podcasting. Shit is pressing, Casey.
So how do you go about not dismissing ideas?
Well, it's about just looking at them on face value. Okay, so, we had tried these two cards together and these two cards together, but never the three of them in the same deck. So, is that an avenue worth going down? Like that, maybe if these numbers aren't right, or maybe some of the other cards in the deck aren't good, but are there core concepts here to look at, not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, I guess.
Yeah.
I think that's really, really good. And even more than that, it's like things are just context dependent, right? Something that doesn't line up well against the decks you try it against. There's no guarantee the decks you think are going to be good are even decks, right? I mean, you can sort of get squeezed out of a format based on, matchups you hadn't anticipated being a lot more prevalent than you thought they'd be.
I think a really good example of this is I really wanted to build a Delirium Planeswalker deck for Pro Tour Kaladesh with Oaths and Vessels and Chandras and Lilianas and Obnixilis and the Spider Dude and Servant of the Conduit and Kalidas and removal spells. And you have this deck idea, right? And you put it on paper and you're like, I have way too many cards.
Yeah, it sounded like too many cards.
Well, or sometimes you might even test that deck against a number of decks and be like, oh man, this deck crushes, red black or whatever, and is really good against red white.
Yeah.
But you might think, oh well, if anyone plays Aetherworks Marvel, I literally could never beat that. So maybe time to shelve it. And I think there are a lot of ideas like that. It doesn't necessarily mean the idea is bad. It just means that you have sort of a different vision for why this deck would be good.
Yeah. So for me this week, my always improving moment was opening up 2 new types of decks. So, when I saw the card Winding Constrictor, for example, I really thought it was too cute. I was like, somebody's going to try and play this in Infect, and it's going to be bad, and whatever.
Well, that does sound really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that specifically would be actually terrible.
And that was my thought. And, I kind of shut my mind to it. And then a couple of our teammates got really excited about the card. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to actively try this deck out when somebody puts it on the table. And they did. And I've never had more fun than attacking with a Glint Sleeve Siphoner and with a Winding Constrictor in play. And it's funny. I think that that's something that we identified early before this weekend, and I really am glad that we have that experience as a team so often. But I really tried to just like listen and learn. I think that another example of that is Walking Ballista. We talked about that during the set review. How like I basically thought the card was unplayable, and then I changed my mind, and I really just tried to open my mind to decks and cards, just as much as possible. It's hard. It's hard to like admit that like what you think initially is wrong.
Well, but it's also good to admit that what you think initially is wrong. I think like if you're consistently wrong about everything, maybe it shows you need to evaluate things differently. But like everyone is wrong sometimes, and I think being open to being wrong really ties into the always improving mindset, right? It's like it's not just, well, I think this, so this is what we're going to do, and that's it, right? It's like, well, I thought this, and then I got new information, and then we reevaluated, and someone I respected told me this card was better than I thought it was, and it makes a lot of sense that like you're not always going to be right on, but if you can reevaluate quickly and sort of adjust your perceptions based on new information you're getting, you're a lot more likely to be able to find a deck that you both like and is good.
Yeah. Oh no, I didn't even ask you. Yeah, what was your hashtag always improving moment this week, Michael?
I feel like I was pretty happy with sort of my read on things for week 1 and just trying to figure out where we're going from here. I've just been playing a lot, trying to find variants of decks, looking at decks that other people had success with and seeing if there's anything I would want to do differently, or if there's any cards that stick out to me as being particularly great against the decks that did well this weekend, just that kind of stuff.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad that you felt good about your, going in there.
Yeah, I really liked like the black-green style decks. I know I liked a lot of stuff with Glint Sleeve Siphoner, so I was happy to see that card do reasonably well. And I think the last thing that I had been interested in before the weekend was a green-black deck that looked relatively kind of halfway between, I guess, the decks that took first and second. So.
Well, let's move on to our card of the week. So every week that we can on the podcast, we like to give out some magical cards. This week we're going to give out a set of 2 Walking Ballistas. Casey, what is Walking Ballista?
It is a new rare from Aether Revolt that costs XX, and it comes into play with X/1/1 counters on it. You can remove a counter from it to deal 1 damage to target creature or player, and you can pay 4 mana to put a single counter on it.
Awesome. Why is this card of the week?
It's kind of been one of the breakout cards of this format. It's really powerful, and it's showing up in a huge variety of decks.
Yeah, tokens, aggro, control.
It's really flexible. It's sort of hanger back. I mean, obviously, like the obvious comparison is sort of hanger back walker, but it does a lot of the same things where just being a curve filler and being overall flexible is really pretty powerful.
I think the card really does fit into like so many strategies, and also it does a lot in the format. It stops the combo, right?
That's the biggest thing that's going for it, right? Is that your impression?
And it just like
I feel like it stonewalls aggro decks.
Yeah, I think that playing Toolcraft Exemplar like makes you feel like you came to the wrong neighborhood.
I think it's just like having that sort of the decks where it's good against the combo in, like out of like green-white tokens, stuff like that, they don't have a whole lot of answers. And playing a card that is fine in other matchups, but is also like, oh, hey, by the way. I think it makes, like, or like the green-black decks where they're tapping out a lot, playing a bunch of like Verdurous Gearhulks, that kind of stuff.
Green-white's a really good example of that, because like there was times where like Matt would have Mana Open and a Walking Ballista and a Thalia in play. And I just like... I can just never go for this combo. I just have 2 cards straight into my hand. And I'm facing down like a Walking Ballista and a Thalia.
Well, right. And hypothetically an Avacyn on end step too, right? I mean, you're just like, I don't really... And that's my issue in that in that matchup. You would think the combo deck should be favored, but when you have all these cards that are like incidentally good against you, right? Where it's not like they're not like playing Authority of the Consuls, right? Where it's like, well, you're just down a card.
And he could have Stasis Snare or Avacyn, right?
Right, you're like,
so
sure.
like I go to kill his guy and he Avacyn's, or I go to do my combo like after I kill his guy and they have Stasis Snare.
Yeah, I mean, if you get to the part of the game where like the deck that is also playing the creatures that are incidentally good against you, plus the spells that actively break up what you're trying to do, and they have like both halves of that, it's going to be a bad time.
Well, yeah, and it's sort of funny, but we had assumed that the deck that would be playing this combo would have reflector mages in it when we were having like forming our initial impressions of it, right? So almost everything that kind of card does is much better than it was kind of at our first look at that deck.
Oh yeah, I mean, just think about this. Like, how annoying would Reflector Mage be out of that deck? It'd be just as annoying as it was in the days of Rally, right? Where it's like, freaking, really?
Right. Minus my Saheeli, copy your Reflector Mage, bounce your thing, build our Guardian, kill you.
Yep.
Okay.
So that stuff, but I think Walking Ballista plays really nicely into like, if you end up sort of forced into playing a little bit more reactively, like the fact that for 4 mana you can put another counter on it, sort of like you're more okay. It's like a really good curve filler in these sort
I like
of
the card a
mid-range
lot.
decks. Yeah.
So, Chris, we're gonna hook you up with 2 of them, just send me a message on Facebook, and maybe I'll just hand them to you since you're local. So, don't have to mail those out.
I think you'd prefer that you did.
No, I'm not doing that. So every week on the show, we talk about a specific format, one of the constructed formats between Legacy, Modern, and Standard. And this week, we're going to do Standard, as it's the first week of Standard. We got that awesome SCG Open that so many people watched, and some pretty sweet decks. So we're going to do something a little different. So we usually do 5 decks. We give them points according to finish. They get 6 points for first, 5 points for second, 4 points for top 4, 3 points for top 8, 2 for top 16, 1 for top 32, and half a point for top 64. And on this one, there was enough of a number of decks that I wanted to just kind of talk about their role in the format more than anything as the 5th place deck. And then we'll go into the decks that actually scored enough points. And I want to talk about the control decks that did well in the format. So we had black-white control, blue-black control, Grixis control, and Jeskai control all getting points this week.
Yeah. Torrential Gearhulk is really powerful now that it's not being overshadowed by Emrakul.
Oh, and blue-red control. I even forgot about that one.
Yeah, so like control decks feel viable again without that card there to ruin everyone's fun, right?
Yeah. And I think that's kind of the point that I wanted to make too, is just how much Torrential Gearhulk fits into the format. Now, nobody found maybe somebody did. There wasn't a clear shell, I guess I should say. But there were a lot of different shells that people tried Torrential Gearhulk in to success. So there's a very clear winner in this archetype, right? And that's Torrential Gearhulk. And there were a lot of Jeskai Saheeli decks that also played 3 Torrential Gearhulk and kind of played a control.
Most of them did that, right?
Yeah, I think the bulk of them were playing some number of Torrential Gearhulks, usually 2 or 3.
So I think that there's something real there. If you don't want to be playing the Jeskai Saheeli combo and you just want to play a control deck with Torrential Gearhulk, I think there's something there, and that's something that we learned from this weekend.
Yeah, and also what's great about that is if you have Jeskai mana and 6 or more lands in play, nobody will ever tap out against you. Ever. So, like, it just gives you this sort of insurance policy, which, like, because Jeskai Saheeli looks so much like Jeskai Control.
And the Jeskai Control deck actually did have the Saheeli combo in the sideboard.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think that all of the really just all of the sort of like 6 or 7 mana things not named Emrakul make way more sense in this format than they did in the last one. And Torrential Gearhulk is maybe the most powerful of those cards, but we saw Verdurous Gearhulk get a bunch of run too, where that card had been pretty much locked out by Emrakul before.
Yep,
very true.
Let's go on to the decks that actually got points. After we got to talk a little bit about control decks. We have Mardu Vehicles coming in with 7 points. Mardu Vehicles is one of the better decks from the last format, but the thing that's different here is it doesn't have Smuggler's Copter anymore. So what could it possibly gain to see play? And there were a few different things that people were trying to do. One of them was Heart of Kirin, which is I think that Mardu does a better job with that card because it has a lot of 3-power creatures.
So many, right? I mean, you have
and like cheap ones, low on the curve. Like Scrapheap Scrounger just never dies.
Scrounger, yeah.
Yes. Exemplar costs 1 mana. Like
Yeah. The other card that it gained that a lot of people tried out was Aether Harvester, which, man, that card could have easily been card of the week.
Yeah, that's a card that I expected to see a lot of play, and actually, kind of between those two cards, the Smuggler's Copter ban like almost feels kind of premature, right?
Between Heart of Kirin
And Aether Harvester, because they both like just really give that card the business.
yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying that it was wrong. I'm just saying like seeing those cards, I was like, oh, luckily Smuggler's Copter won't be like.
I think that neither of
good.
these cards really help Blue-White Flash the same way, though. If you look at Blue-White Flash, one of the problems that the deck really had is like having clunk, and man, did Smuggler's Copter fix the clunk.
Yeah, that's true.
Smuggler's Copter definitely, like, the looter effect is really strong on the body.
Well, it's really good in specific types of decks, and Blue-White really benefited from that, where Mardu Vehicles never really needed it. Now, one of the decks that takes a hit is like the red-black aggro deck, because, they really wanted the loot effect, right? The Madness style deck. But, I think that most of us thought that, these other vehicles could fill some kind of role here in the vehicles deck.
Definitely. I mean, they don't quite work the same, but they're still very good. I mean, these cards are still like very good on rate for the most part.
Yeah, it does look like a lot of the vehicles decks did end up playing Gideon, which is definitely interesting. It looks like the first couple that I looked at both had Gideon. What do you guys think of playing something like Gideon in a 22 land deck?
It's something that was pretty common in that deck before too. Usually 2 in the main, 1 on the side, or something pretty close to that.
2 in the main, 1 on the side.
Anyway, so it's not surprising to see it kind of still around, because it's really not a card that you need to play on turn 4 for it to still be impactful. Where some cards kind of aren't as impressive if you play them later in the game.
Sure.
Gideon really does not have that problem.
So I also I think the mana in the deck actually got quite a bit better.
I was actually going to say how bad I think Inspire of Industry is in this deck.
I think it is better than basic land, generally.
How can that possibly be true? If you ever have 2 of these in your hand, you can't cast spells.
If you can't make an artifact in the first couple of turns, that is true. But you're playing.
But you have colored 1-drop creatures.
Yeah, but so these would probably be mountains.
No, they would just be Aether Hubs.
Oh, sure. Maybe playing.
Most of the
maybe
lists are
that
playing
split is
4
a
and
little
4.
strange. Yeah, I would assume either 4 and 4. If you were going to play fewer than that, I would play more Aether Hubs. But it seems like that's not what people are doing. I mean, I think the card is pretty good in the deck, and you're likely to be able to tap it for mana a lot.
Yeah.
But I could certainly see it leading to mulligans playing.
So wait, you're telling me that just because I want to understand, the mana base that you're suggesting for the deck is 4 Spire Bluff Canal, 4 Spire of Industry, 4 Inspiring Village, 4 Concealed Courtyard, 4 Aether Hub?
Yes.
Wow.
Correct. Yeah.
And then obviously probably Plains.
Yeah, and then we're playing Aether Sphere Harvesters, which make your Aether Hubs better. Not by a lot, but
I mean, you don't really need the energy for the Life Leak in this deck as much.
Yeah,
Not
you're
as
certainly not
often.
hoping to ever activate that.
I also think one of my, just looking at this deck a little bit, I can't help but think that Depala has improved in positioning a little bit. Making your Heart of Kirins eat their Heart of Kirins is really sweet. And I was talking to a friend about this last week, but I think having sort of the extra digging or filtering almost in this deck without Smuggler's Copter can go a long ways.
I find it hard to differentiate how many of different effects I want. So for me, if I were to build this deck, I think I would still want 2 Cultivator's Caravan.
I think if I were playing the blue, I would definitely want it. If otherwise, I probably wouldn't.
Okay.
But I think there's a lot of room for improvement in these lists still.
Yeah.
Like, looking at these, what I would say is that I think the end list, because we don't have Smuggler's Copter anymore and there's not such a clear-cut hierarchy in vehicles specifically, I could see a list playing like 2 Cultivator's Caravans and an Aether Sphere Harvester and 3 Heart of Kirins.
That's
or
what I
something.
was kind of thinking is like some kind of split in between.
You can
the
end up
vehicles.
with there's a lot more nuance in how you build these decks at this point.
And what matchups you expect and how you want your games to play out, right?
And I think that that's really cool, actually, because it really rewards being thoughtful, where I think when you have cards like Smuggler's Copter that are just so good on rate, it's like, well, I know I'm playing 4 of these.
Yeah, like there's a real cost to putting Heart of Kirin in your deck. Whether that cost is playing cheap planeswalkers or whether that cost is playing 3-power creatures, it's still a cost. Whereas the cost of playing Smuggler's Copter was putting a Smuggler's Copter in your deck.
Right. I mean, it was literally good with everything. So I think that
I think the cost of Smuggler's Copter was 3-bit Inspector.
But the thing is, like, even if people
Some people would
played,
consider that not a cost. I'm not one of them. I'm just saying.
so but people played Thraben Inspector, right? Because it was good with Smuggler's Copter. But like, if Thraben Inspector wasn't printed, you wouldn't be like, oh, Smuggler's Copter not good enough anymore, right? I mean, people wanted to overload on 1-drops even more than usual. But this Mardu deck, I think, probably wants Thraben Inspector anyways for the Toolcraft Exemplar synergy.
Yeah, I mean, you're playing Inventor's Apprentice and Toolcraft Exemplar. Like, you want artifacts
you're
in
priced
play.
into it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that, like, it's actually really interesting looking at this style of deck specifically, how much more nuance there is at this point than there was at the end of the last format.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, up next we have green-white tokens coming with 9 points. I'm really proud that we noticed this too. This is if you look at like the decks, the 4 decks that did well this tournament, we identified all of them. And I'm really glad that we identified green-white tokens because I would have felt real dumb, right? If people had
The writing is just so on the wall.
yeah,
with this deck.
if people had showed up with green-white tokens, we'd been like, oh my gosh, guys.
Oh yeah, this is a thing that's going to happen.
I
to
don't
me
know
again.
why we didn't realize that when Emrakul left that this would be like a good deck.
It's not even. It's just Smuggler's Copter. Like, Nissa's just actually
think it's
a playable
definitely
Magic
Emrakul,
card
too.
again.
I mean, maybe. I don't know. We never really played a ton of games with Emrakul against this type of strategy. But the problem is your cards don't really hurt you that badly. Like, an Emrakul turn, just can't really mess you up that much.
No, your favorite land hurts you pretty bad with Emrakul, right?
Which one is that?
The one that sacrifices your dude.
Just don't play that card.
I mean, but I don't even think it was that. I think it was that more this deck was just invalidated because, like, the combination of Reflector Mage and Smuggler's Copter
Sure.
were both just really good against the deck playing a bunch of 3 and 4 mana Planeswalkers. This one though, like, it has some issues, and it looks like there's still kind of a lot of debate on there were a bunch of different lists for it.
I was
but-
actually really surprised by some of the lists.
Yeah,
But-
without getting into too much detail, I agree. I was very surprised at some of the things people chose to play in this deck this weekend.
I mean, that being said, right? I mean, there's like a core of about 45 cards that are great, and I think that's what's really awesome about this deck. When you sign up with this list, you are playing 25 lands and about 20 to 25 mythics, and how bad can your deck be, right? I mean, it's like we're playing just all the best cards in the format. So
Yeah, this is a best ofs deck.
Yeah, I think that this is going to be the kind of... It's not going to be like it was before. Dromoka's Command is gone, and that is a huge hit. But removing Dromoka's Command, the deck is still tier 1, and unless something can invalidate what it's doing, you're going to lose to this deck's curve out. This is the best curve out deck I've ever seen. And honestly, that includes Alara Jund, which was likely the best curve out deck of all time. I mean, just Putrid Leech into Shrouding Tyrannex, into Bloodbraid Elf, curve into Blightning, was just the best thing that you could possibly think of, right? And this deck does it better.
Yeah, I mean, I think that gets walked all over by Advocate, Nissa, Gideon, Avacyn, right?
Yeah,
Like,
it does.
I mean,
I don't know how you could ever
doesn't
pop
everything,
right.
right? Okay, yeah.
I mean,
this
people literally tried green-white tokens in Modern because of the power of what this curve out actually does. And I think that we just can't forget that. And now that Smuggler's Copter is gone, this deck stands a real chance of really doing something. So definitely keep this deck in mind. I really like our build way better than most of the stuff that I've seen.
So that being said, right? I mean, if this deck has a weakness, it's the next one up, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean,
The Saheeli combo deck is next. It comes in with 17 points. This includes all versions of it, Jeskai and 4-color alike. Honestly, I feel like we tried the 4-color and 5-color variants of this deck basically right when the set was spoiled, and I can't imagine ending up on this deck for a tournament.
I would agree. It sort of reminds me of early Modern Splitter Twin decks where they were super all in on getting the combo, playing Pact of Negations and basically anything and everything they could get their hands on, right? But then eventually people realize that the best place to play your combo is in a control shell whenever possible.
So, I mean, I like some of the elements of these 4-color decks. I like how good the mana is relative to, like, what it looks like. The problem is that pretty much everyone settled on playing a bunch of Attune with Aethers, and there are no real energy payoffs. So we're playing, like, 4 Attune with Aether, a bunch of Rogue Refiners, and a bunch of Servant of the Conduits, and we don't really have, like...
I mean, you just do it to make your mana better, right?
Right, but I mean, I played against this deck a few times earlier today, and like I get that you always want Aether Hub turned on and stuff, but man, your card quality really dips when you decide that you're gonna play like just a bunch of these cards.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like almost like they're just straight cutting lands for Attune. At least that list, I think, was playing 21 lands.
They both were playing 22, right? Oh no, this one is playing 21.
Yeah, 22 even. That's low for a deck that they're playing like Cloud Blazer.
Well, they're
Right.
playing Oath of Nissa and Attune, so they're playing like a ton of
Right, I'm
these
saying, like-
cantrippy.
Like in green white, you're playing 4 Oath and 25 lands.
Well,
right?
but this deck is also playing mana creatures. Yeah, I
That's
mean,
true.
I think you're playing enough mana sources. My issue was more that when you as the game goes on, you have all these creatures that cantrip, right? So you're playing like 4 Rogue Refiners, playing all the. I mean, Oath of Nissa is great in this deck, but you're trying to sort of hit your land drops, then go like Oath into Felidar Guardian, Flicker Oath into Saheeli, kill you, and that's kind of a powerful thing, but. Man, you have a lot of like parts of games where you're just like drawing Servant of the Conduit and Shock and more Attune with Aethers.
I feel like
So,
it'd be really hard to draw like up a 5 that could win a game with this deck, right?
So it's been a while since I talked about this in this podcast, but sometimes in Magic there are, and I think the last time that this was really prevalent, and oh man, I mean I get so much crap for this, was with Mono Black Devotion, where people just go in saying this is going to be the best thing, and everyone plays it, and it's this self-fulfilling prophecy, where obviously it was the best deck, like, 33% of the field was on it, and like all of the best players played it, and like everybody like played a bunch of bad decks that they thought had good matchups against it that actually didn't, and I mean there were decks with real good matchups against Mono Black Devotion, and like people still ended up playing like bad cards somehow, and I think that going into this it was pretty clear like some of the cards that you could play, right? I mean, even if you look at the 16th place green white deck, or one of the green white decks, like didn't even have Walking Ballista in it. I mean, obviously the deck is going to be good if you're not even playing the best cards for your decks, right? And I don't mean to discredit anybody who's like making whatever choices they're making on their deck list, but like I just think that week 1 this deck was bound to be good.
Well, I think it was also bound to get there through sheer volume.
Right.
Yeah, because people were just excited about the idea of playing it.
Well,
And I think that the deck does have a lot of staying power. It's very
Yes.
powerful and will always be a thing in Standard. But yeah, people were a little bit overly excited about it, and people were also playing some questionable hate for it, right? People were playing like main deck authority of the consoles to try to hate this deck out. But
One
then
of
you're
the-
just like
yeah.
you're just like dragging yourself down to the O2 bracket, right? By like drawing that card when it doesn't matter.
Well, I mean, I don't know. It's all kind of funny. I think the combo is like really powerful, but I think when you look at the card quality in some of these lists, it's just so abysmally low that it's hard for me to feel like these shells are better than the Jeskai shells. I think they're just more resilient to people going really overboard with hate cards, right? Like if your opponent is just going to like play a Walking Ballista and sit there with it and then hold up Stasis Snare, I'd rather be playing the deck full of Cloud Blazers and Rogue Refiners and
Sure.
this stuff than the deck that like needs to kill every problematic permanent and try to win by comboing.
The other thing that I think of when I see these decks is like, I think Casey said it really well. I do think that the combo is a powerful 2-card combo. Saheeli does something, and if you build your deck right, Felidar Guardian will do something. And if there's anything that I learned from cards like Deceiver Exarch, it's that doing something is sometimes enough, as long as you have something else that's, the most powerful thing you can be doing, as long as that card's in your deck. So there's certainly always going to be something there. But I already have listened to multiple podcasts that have said this is going to be banned after the Pro Tour, so don't even buy the deck. And after our initial Pro Tour testing, I just don't think that's true.
So I like, there are things I like about the 5, like the 4 or 5 or 11 color version or whatever, but I think that you could strike a better balance between like all the energy production and comes into play effects and being like a good stuff deck that includes combo.
Yeah, there's probably certainly a middle ground where maybe you're not playing torrential gear hulks and things like a real control deck would, but maybe you're also not playing a tune with the Aether.
I'm even okay with like a tune, but maybe I would rather it be traverse or something like just I'm not talking about making huge changes. I'm talking about like really just sort of hedging away from just trying to get your cards to do something. This deck scares me because I can like you said this just a minute ago. I can't imagine a lot of 5s with this deck that look like they could possibly win a game.
Right, it's basically like 3 lands combo, right? Like that's the only 5 that you could ever like keep and hope to win.
I mean, the thing is, you can win games like if you go like a tune into like Rogue Refiner into. I mean, you can get there.
One of the reasons that I didn't understand the point of these decks, like we quickly moved from the 4 color versions into like the Panharmonicon versions, and like I just don't get it. I just don't get the appeal. Like, what is the possible reason to add a 4th color when you already had a shell of a good deck like Panharmonicon? Like. And I'm not saying that any... By the way, I am actually not saying... I don't think any Danny or Michael will end up on a Panharmonicon Celirai deck for the Pro Tour. And that's why I feel safe saying this. But, like... I just don't get... Like, why did you try to invent a new archetype with worse cards than a deck that already existed, that was already good, that the combo fit so well into? And that's the same way I feel with both Jeskai and Panharmonicon.
So, I mean, I assume that they tried things like that and found it too slow. I'm really more surprised...
Maybe they expected more aggro than
I'm just more surprised at individual card choices.
Yeah.
Even, like, I think, like, the shell, like, I feel like I could get into a deck that's, like, 10 cards different than that and is basically constructed, like, structurally the same way. Just some of the individual card choices are crazy to me.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the idea with playing the 4 color versions
this year.
If you win the Pro Tour,
you can always get platinum if you just win a PT.
Yeah, you should do that, Michael. I feel like we get more listeners and our opinions would be more, respected.
Anyway, as I was saying, so I think
Did I rudely interrupt you?
Yes, extremely.
Sorry. Hold on, go ahead.
So the reason that you play green in the deck, I think, is so that you have a plan B. Whether the plan B is particularly good or not is harder to say, at least as far as like this initial version. But that's what they're going for. Is I want to be able to win without comboing out.
I think Oath of Nissa is incredibly good, and I think Rogue Refiner is incredibly good. I just think that the cards I want to play with those in Felidar Guardian and Saheeli, I want those cards a lot. I just want the rest of the deck to be constructed differently.
Yeah, to be part of like a strategy and not just lay of the land.
They're just the emphasis on energy production over everything else is puzzling to me.
Well, let's go on to our number 1 deck. We have green, black, aggro coming in with 20 points. And I just want to, like, put my hand up like I made a 3 and just hold it there. Because, man, oh, man, did I call a card in our set review when I called it a 4.
Oh, sure.
Rishkar, Pima, Renegade was crazy when watching the coverage this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, if you curve the snake into that, it's like, ugh.
It was like, so wait a second, what happened?
Where it really gets you
Why
is
did
in
you
like
get a 3-mana Verdurous Gearhulk?
Yeah, when your opponent is trying to attack you is where it's really a beating, right? Like if you're trying to attack them, it's fine. But if your opponent is trying to attack you and you make like a 4/4 and a 4/5 on turn 3 on the play, it's just like, yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah, and also like next turn you can also just cast like any spell you want in your deck now for some reason.
Sure.
It was so weird.
Yeah, I mean it's one of those cards where I think.
Yeah, I never thought this card would be a 4 of, and in the second place list it wasn't, but I believe it was in the third place list. It was.
It's the kind of card that like obviously the second one is bad, but the first one is really good. And if you get to use it to ramp out like a Verdurous Gearhulk and your opponent is, playing...
I saw somebody
like
ramp out a freaking Walking Ballista for like a ton with the thing in play, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah,
you're like another 4/4 because you just didn't have enough of those already?
Yeah. And it shot down their board.
And it can tap for mana to put more counters on itself.
Oh my gosh.
It's so good.
Deck building.
Yeah.
It's the card is just like, but what makes it good, right, is that it's
Wait,
bad
what
case
does this
scenarios.
do? Each permanent you control with counter on it. Okay.
The thing that makes it good though is that its bad scenarios are still fine, right? Like it's great with Winding Constrictor, but if all it does is put a second counter on your Walking Ballista and then let your Walking Ballista cast like, I don't know, Traverse the Ulvenwald. Like, I mean, I can come with all kinds of scenarios that sound great, but you could do some really cute things even with Walking Ballista, like float mana, shoot 2 of your guys, put 2 types in my graveyard, traverse the Ulvenwald off the mana. I don't know. You can do all kinds of really sweet stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I just think that this... I mean, everybody's trying to do, like, the green-black delirium thing and stuff like that, and it's just like, this is so much better. And, like, Glint Sleeve, Siphoner, and Winding Constrictor, like, this second-place deck is just a thing of beauty. Can we just be honest? Like...
Yeah, I don't like a few of his choices, but like,
what do you don't like? What do you not
I'm
like
not that
specifically?
big on Aether Sphere Harvester in this deck. I know why he's playing it, and I'm not that big on some of his numbers.
You know, so I don't know Steven Dykeman, and I applaud him for getting second place. I was very interested by a lot of his play in the top 8 when I was watching with Casey, and I found that his deck was so good that I thought that like literally anyone could pilot it and win some of those matches. Like, that's how good he built his deck.
Yeah, the deck was mostly awesome. I do agree that the numbers look strange to me, but it looks like a tuned deck. Right?
I'm not huge on like the main deck Kalitas in this style of deck. I saw that come back to bite him a couple of times during coverage where like it just wasn't quite aggressive enough.
Yeah,
for what he was looking for.
It seems like a deck that like he has a very specific idea as to what he wants to play against, or it's green-black cards that I was able to get together.
I think it's
one of those two things.
This looks to me like a deck that I would build. Like, if you like go look at the list that I qualified for my first Pro Tour with, like I had very specific 4 ofs, very specific 3 ofs, very specific 2 ofs, and yeah, I'm literally in love with this deck list.
There's a lot to like about it. I like that he's playing a lot of Fatal Pushes because I think that's really good right now. I like that he's playing a lot of the cards that work well together, and the fact that the deck can beat down really well. I do agree that there are some, like, Kalitas does stick out like a sore thumb in that deck. Aether Sphere Harvester feels a little slow for what the deck is trying to accomplish, but there's a lot to like about the deck. Like, a lot to like.
Well, what I like about it, though, too, is that, like, especially post-sideboard, you just have a lot of play. I mean, one of the advantages of playing a bunch of 3s and 2s in your deck is that you really get the chance to refine it post-sideboard and kind of get to exactly the spot positioning-wise that you want to be.
Yeah. One thing that I do want to mention is the deck list that won in first place. And I want to be very clear that I think it is extremely disingenuous to call this deck Black-Green Delirium when there was a Black-Green Delirium deck last year that is just last month that is so different from this. I think it's very misleading to people. And for the people that just look at results and like don't read into the deck list and see what's going on, you're going to have a lot of people just bringing their Black-Green Delirium decks that they build, thinking that like, oh, this deck won an SCG. And I thought just to be very clear, Black-Green Delirium did not win.
Right. No, I mean, this is...
that's why it's Black-Green aggro in the power rankings.
This is Black-Green aggro that plays Grimflayer.
Yeah. And honestly, I don't know if was I talking about you about it, Michael, where I just said that I didn't want to be in Grimflayer territory right now?
I don't think so, but I think that's a reasonable thought to have. I mean, I know that the decks I was trying to construct like this, I was playing Grimflayer and Glint Sleeve Siphoner and Winding Constrictors. I mean, I think there's lots of ways to go with these kind of ideas, and there's still quite a bit of space for exploration. Even though, and I think seeing like how different those two deck lists are, even though a lot of their games probably play out pretty similarly, is kind of shocking.
Yeah, I think the third place deck list and the second place deck list are like relatively close to each other. Like just playing Sylvan Advocates instead of the mana creature, and playing a little bit more Planeswalkers, and Heart of Kirin instead of Aether Sphere Harvester. There's just a lot of ways to build this deck. I think you're right, and that's actually what my video will be this week on puremtgo.com. I'm doing tech talks on Black-Green aggro. So
sweet.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's wrap this up. What would you guys play tomorrow and why? You don't have to answer if you don't want, Michael.
It's fine. I think I would probably play either. I still haven't quite figured out exactly what the mix in black green I want is, but I think that deck is just like really solid. It's very much a good stuff deck. I don't think there's like there's no silver bullet for it, right? There's nothing I'm like worried about in that context. If not that, I might look at something like Jeskai.
Like Jeskai Saheeli or
I'm not sure if I would play Saheeli or not.
just Jeskai Control?
I think just Jeskai might be better. I like that people still have to at least sort of respect that you could be playing the combo, but I don't know that I want to have to clear their board of a walking ballista before I can win the game.
Yeah, if I was going to a PBTQ this weekend, I would play Jeskai Control without the Saheeli combo.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's going to be a lot of sites narrowed in on Saheeli combo because people hate losing to combo.
They do, like, irrationally. Like, losing is losing, but people really hate it when it happens to them, like, in a way they feel like was unfair somehow.
Yeah, people, if there's two things in this world people hate, it's losing to combo and losing to mono red. And so
yeah, but people don't believe in actually trying to beat mono red. That's just a fact of life.
Right,
they hate losing to it, but they only like losing. They only like complaining about it. They don't actually, change their ways.
Yeah. So I would be a little bit hesitant to go in on that strategy, even though I do like the deck a fair amount. I would be pretty happy playing either green-black or green-white. I think that there's a lot of play in building both of these decks.
Yeah.
And I would be happy to play either of them or Jeskai Control because Torrential Gear Hulk is an awesome card that I definitely did not get to play with enough.
Yeah, dude, I just,
last season.
I'm not going to lie. When I cast Torrential Gear Hulk and flash back a Glimmer of Genius, it does feel a lot like Sphinx's Revelation.
Yeah, it feels a lot like doing it, right? Like you're getting it done.
And I like that feeling. I missed that feeling. I don't remember who I was talking to. I said that I don't know that I had played a non-green deck since like the days of Sphinx's Revelation. I don't know. I still don't know that I have. Oh. No, I don't know that I have.
I think the only non-green decks that I've played have been basically like super aggressive decks, like
That's
mono
true.
red or
I've
Mardu.
probably played mono red or some kind of a aggro deck without green. That's
No,
probably
I guess I played Jeskai for a long time, and that was post Sphinx's Revelation.
Yeah.
But basically, since Mantis Rider and Goblin Rabble Master went away, it's been a lot of like green mid-range decks, which are fine, but it's no
Torrential Gear Hulk.
Exactly.
Completely understand. Well, let's go into our training round. So every week on the show, we want to talk about something that's going to make you better at Magic or life in general. And I do think that at the end of this one, we will kind of talk about how this has improved us in our daily lives as well. We'll kind of wrap up with that a little bit. But I do want to talk about looking at data. Because I think that a lot of times, and this is a great week to do it, right? Week one of a format. There's a lot of data in front of you. How do you go through and decipher what's good, what's bad, and how do you gather that from the data that's in front of you? And it's also important to what kind of data are you looking for, Casey? When you look for data, what are you looking for?
Well, when it comes to especially brand new tournaments, like brand new formats like this, and the first tournaments thereof, figuring out what people are doing, whether it's different or the same as what we're doing, and where it's different, is it better or worse? And is it better or worse in a vacuum, or is it better or worse because of the format? Did we anticipate something that other people didn't in terms of the hate cards that would be out or what people would be playing? And, do I need to correct or are we a step ahead? Things like that. Just trying to get in other people's heads, basically.
And what if, Michael, you're not one of those people that are already playtesting? What if you're looking for those week one results to decide what kind of deck you're buying? What are you looking for in that information?
Well, I think I'm looking at archetypes that have done well, and then I'm looking at cards because maybe I'm looking at week one data and I'm not super ready to just snap off an entire deck, but maybe I'm trying to snipe walking ballistas before they had jumped way up again, or I don't know, just looking for carryover between archetypes. If I'm not sure that Grim Flayer is where I want to be in my green-black deck, but I like the green-black decks, my first purchase is not, so there are a bunch of different builds, right? And I'm looking for the cards that I'm 100% sure I'm going to play first.
Yeah, and I think that also when you're doing that, you're also saying two things, right? You're talking about making a purchase, right? But you're also saying, like, I've decided from whatever I viewed, whether that data is, visual representation in front of you through games played or through looking at countless deck lists and seeing the tech that certain people are playing and seeing what was the most successful cards overall. If I were to make a, what is the word I'm looking at? Collaborative? No. Where you take everything and smash it into one.
Like a composite or
composite deck list, right? If I was to, thank you very much. If I was to make a composite deck list of this, what kind of cards would it include? And also, what does that composite deck list look like? That's one of the huge things that I look for in a week like this. Like, okay, here's the best strategy. If I were to smash all these together, what does a composite deck list look like?
And then from there, sort of looking, okay, so, if I think the best strategy is Saheeli combo, what is this week to... Like, where does the metagame go from here? I mean, it's a little bit tougher when you're looking at a deck like Black-Green where, like, you're mostly just playing good cards on rate, right? So you're probably not going to have, like, the Black-Green deck be unplayable regardless of metagame shifts. But sort of, where do I expect things to go from here? What's good next week? What am I buying into if I look at this stuff?
And then one of the things that I want to talk about outside of week one is, let's say it's not week one. Where do you go to find your data? What kind of places do you go for that kind of resources? And we actually do, it's a real point of this podcast to actually present you guys with data. It's actually really important to us. That's why we do the power rankings the way that we do. If we do the power rankings based upon the decks we like, you might never see a lot of the decks that are in the power rankings. But because we find it more important to not give our opinions, but what's actually happening, we break down the power rankings the way that we do. So I would say listening to podcasts like this one is a huge one. And I think that, honestly, in doing the power rankings and in doing the show the way we do, it gives me a lot of information. When somebody comes to me and they talk about how good... I'm going to use the easiest example. When somebody comes to me about Modern, they're like, yeah, Geist Control is the best deck in Modern. Jeskai Geist just is the best deck. It's the best deck. And I'm like, actually, just, from data points, that's just not true. Like, actually just has never been the best deck. And I can confidently say that from the data that I've gathered through doing this podcast. And, it would be really hard because I think that people who are passionate about Magic and passionate about their decks can oftentimes make a really compelling argument. And I think that Jeskai Geist might be the perfect example of a deck that somebody could make a compelling argument for as to why they like it and as to why it could be the best deck. But if you surround yourself with information and gather data in the right sources, rather than just gathering opinions, I think that you can really decipher what's going on around you.
Yeah, and being honest, right? Maybe to you on some level, Geist aggro or Jeskai Geist is the best deck, but it's not the best deck at winning tournaments, right? It's the best deck in my heart. I'm with you there, but it's not the...
Actually, that's a good point. You love Jeskai Geist.
Right. But, like, I haven't actually played that deck in a tournament in centuries because it just hasn't been very good. And so, and it's data-driven, my own poor tournament results with the deck and everyone else's poor tournament results with the deck.
Why be data-driven when selecting a deck?
Because it's really the only way to be objective. You want to, if you're trying to win tournaments, win matches, qualify for Pro Tours or anything else, you need to be very honest about why you're doing something.
I actually have a thought here. Michael, what did you do for a living before you worked at Oasis Games?
I did mostly like Excel work.
For what?
For a car rental company. So
So you were looking at data all day long?
Yeah, so it's a lot of just data work.
Casey, what do you do for work other than your apple orchard?
I do a lot, but I've recently, last couple of years especially, I've been in data analytics a lot, specifically kind of in logistics, transportation.
Yeah, and for me, I am now a product analyst. So, my job, I'm developing a new software. So we actually all work with data a lot. Like, we're very data driven in our fields. I mean, Michael now is, card entering and customer service, but that's
Good
by
shot.
hatred
Good shot.
of doing anything.
Yeah,
But like, I think that even in that world, like, because your job, you work there because you love Magic the Gathering, and you are data driven in Magic the Gathering. And I think that we all are like that. And I think that's a really important context to put on this training grounds, is that the reason we feel the way we do is because it's made us successful in our careers. Because there's a lot to be said about how you feel about something, right? And having that gut feel about, no, this is why I think what I think, because I have a feeling about it, right? And you can't replace that. But
you can actually train it to be better a lot of the time. Like, you'd be surprised at how good your gut can get if you're like constantly comparing it. It's like how you get better. It's like how you would develop like a better palate or like better taste in wine or something, right? You compare what you feel to what data says, and things get in line if you put in work on that kind of stuff.
Well, and it's the reason that people listen to our set reviews or other people's set reviews, right? Where it's, where nobody's really played with these cards for the most part yet, maybe a very little bit, but it's intuition trained by objective data-driven experiences.
Yeah. So where do you go to find this data? And I think that a lot of people might not even realize that they're doing this. How many times, you as the listener, I want you to put yourself in this situation, do you log in to your computer, open up Star City Games or MTG Deck, MTG Goldfish, whatever it is that you're doing, and just click on every single deck list of a deck type that you're looking at? You look at every single one at a tournament or on a page of the same name, and then you go and build your deck. You probably do that every single time.
Yeah, I go on MTG Goldfish constantly, and I'm just looking for any little thing. Like, okay, why are they playing this one of in their sideboard? What is that for? Is it good? What does it do?
Yeah. So now you might ask yourself, I don't do that. How can I do that? So I'm going to give you a couple of ways that you can do that. Honestly, 100% honest with you, the deck database search on SCG is actually amazing. Like, legitimately, you can find exactly what you're looking for just about 100% of the time. And then MTG Goldfish and MTGOstats.com, MTGO-stats.com, both of these are great resources. I am a big fan of Pauper. If I do plan on, one day just splurging a couple $100 and buying every single Pauper deck. So one of the things that I do before I jump into a Pauper League is I go, all right, what are the top performing decks right now? So right now, I go to MTGGoldfish.com, I click on it, I see Dimir Control at 1, Marasatron at 2, which, by the way, I want to buy this deck. It's 50 decks. I'm probably going to do that. Mono Blue Delver, Kolotha Boros, and Stompy. I'm like, okay, what does my sideboard look like right now? And then I go in and I might adjust that before I go into the net, or at least I'll think of like, give myself data before going into a league, right? Because I don't play Pauper a ton, I just love it. But also at the same time, I could also go to all three of these sites at once, go click on Standard, right? Find green-white tokens, and look at every green-white tokens list since a date that I set in the deck finder inside of Star City Games, and then look at every single green-white tokens deck on MTG Goldfish, right? Which, by the way, apparently somehow is live. How did they get this?
I don't know, because when does the new set go on Moto? It's not yet, right? You guys know Heart of Kirin or anything?
It had it on this.
Well, this because MTG Goldfish uses.
Does it use
SCG.
Star City Games as well?
Yeah.
Okay. I now understand what's happening. All right. Sometimes you have to. We just did it, right? We just looked at data, tried to figure out. Wait, this data doesn't make sense. What's going wrong with it? And we figured it out, right?
So it's some data from the future.
But no, I think that's important, right? I noticed a flaw in the data, right? They give you a composite deck list, for those who don't know, on MTG Goldfish and on MTGO Stats. These composite deck lists happen to have cards from Aether Revolt. And Aether Revolt is not yet legal on MTGO. Am I missing, by the way, these are the main places that I go for data. Do you guys go anywhere else?
I also keep my own composite Excel spreadsheet most of the time, and I'll just play decks against each other, playing both sides.
You do that?
Do you
Yeah.
listen to that one as the loneliest number song when you do that?
No, you can just get through a lot of games a lot faster.
Dude, I'm going to tell a secret. When I was really good at Magic back in the day, when I thought I was hot stuff, I worked a job working night shifts, and I had a notebook where I tested matchups by myself during my night shifts and just kept information in a notebook about those matchups.
I think you can get a good feeling for who's favored in a matchup just because, especially in a new format, you're working with so little data overall. There's so little consensus
You just
on
do
what
it in
beats
Cockatrice
what.
and have a...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I just keep an Excel sheet so I keep track of what side is winning games and how often each deck mulligans and what cards are important in the matchups, basically.
Yeah, I
With,
do that sometimes specifically to test out sideboard cards. Is this sideboard card actually good? Try to run through some games, construct game states where it would or wouldn't be good. And see how it
So the
shakes
nice
out.
thing is that you can play games that are if I know a deck is fine, so I want to see maybe what percentage of Mardu 7s I'm mulliganing, but I also don't want to play a bunch of games, with Mardu 5s against other deck 7s. So I'm less interested in, so if I'm mulliganing, 20% of the time or something, that's good data and pretty data that you can get yourself that's really easy to get a handle on. And then that can sort of lead you to being able to better construct okay, so how often realistically am I going to lose to my mana? I mean, you could keep track of that kind of stuff. And I think that for a lot of decks that lean more aggressive, especially where they're less reactive and perfect information doesn't really matter, you can remarkably accurately construct exactly how a game will play out.
Well, yeah, if you're playing a really aggressive deck, you want your opponent to play the role of spectator as much as possible, right?
So it's mostly fine, yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess here's the question. What is the biggest flaw you find others or that you personally have made when looking at data?
Well, the biggest flaw I would say is, one, either not looking at it, or two, cherry picking it. This deck has top 8'd 5 opens in the last 6 months, which means it's great. And that's just not meaningful. You went and found a deck that you liked, and you're justifying your reasons for playing it.
And that's okay. If you just want to play a deck and you just want to play something that is at least okay, you're not saying before every FNM you need to, do 30 hours of rigorous testing. It's just
No, certainly not. But don't pretend like you're doing it for a reason that you're not. If you're playing a deck because it's sweet, play it because it's sweet. Don't delude yourself into thinking that it's a great deck by cherry picking data.
Kind of to touch on that also is I think that this is just the most factual thing that will probably be said on this episode. That's just not an opinion. People do two things the most. They undervalue or overvalue certain data points. So, for example, Casey basically puts zero stock in classic results,
Correct.
undervaluing data. That's fair. That's your opinion. I'm just saying, I think that's undervaluing a data point that's given to you. And that could be a bad example. Other people see a deck that wins an event and says, this is the best deck in the format, overvaluing data. There's a lot of things that go into Magic. And it's important to note that just because what's even more annoying than that, actually, than the winning one? The winning one's annoying, but annoying might not be the right word. It's annoying to me, but it's also just detrimental to you, is when you only look at a top 8 when deciding what decks are good. In fact, I would encourage you, if you're listening to a podcast or reading an article that only talks about decks at the top 8 tournaments and not the actual results of the entire tournament, you are getting bad data. That data is not good, and you are getting bad information, and you should either ask that person to give you different data or look for that data yourself. Because you are not getting a holistic view of the tournament and all of the data that's actually important by just looking at the top 8.
Yeah, because if you look at the top 32 of a tournament, it's pretty easy to... a lot of times, if I looked at top 32, I could tell you what the top 8 decks were in pretty close approximation. Not because they're better decks, but because they line up well against the other 24 decks in that top 32. Like, the decks that, like, sometimes the decks that are hating out the best deck kind of get dragged down, right? And they don't really make it up. And so the one or two people that didn't play against the deck that hates them out just dominate the rest of the top of the field.
So when I was going to Pro Tour Origins, one of the things that we got from listeners the most was, before the Pro Tour, was, oh man, have you tested Jeff Hoogland's blue-white artifact control deck? And they asked me that probably 100 times. And I was like,
what was the answer?
I was like, yes, and it's bad. Yes, and it's bad. Yes, and it's bad. Not only did I say that, but Jeff said that. But people didn't listen to that. They saw that Jeff took like third at the tournament with it and just really wanted to play with the cards in his deck. So they were like, this deck is great. It top 8'd an SCG. The deck wasn't good. This happens all the time, where somebody will win an event. Like Lucas Blohan literally won the Pro Tour with black-white control. When asked about his deck after the Pro Tour, he says, this deck was bad. I would not recommend it to anyone. I don't know how I won. I got really lucky.
Yeah, I had no good matchups.
I had 0 good matchups going into that top 8 and almost 0 at the tournament. Yet, after the tournament, people kept saying how black-white was the best deck because it won the Pro Tour. They didn't actually look at the data. He was the only one that did well with black-white.
Right. And sometimes it's funny, too, because similarly, Steve Rubin won the Pro Tour before that with green-white tokens, and people were like, oh, what a weird deck, because it had no fanfare coming into that tournament, where most of the other decks in the top 8 did. So
Did green-white tokens win that tournament?
Yeah.
Yeah, won that tournament despite Steve Rubin trying to play a Hangerback Walker for 0 and accidentally casting it as a 1/1 because he had a Gideon emblem.
That's great. That's a great anecdote. I didn't know that.
It just didn't matter.
No, but I was going to go back. If you looked at the data from the Pro Tour that Lucas won, you would have realized that Blue-White Flash was the best deck at that Pro Tour. This happens all the time.
No, that wasn't the Pro Tour that he won, but yeah, that's...
Oh, sorry. I'm thinking of... Anyway.
I mean, Bant Company was clearly the best deck of that format.
I mean, I believe Shota said basically the same thing after Pro Tour Kaladesh,
Yeah,
right?
he
That
was
his deck was bad and no one should ever play it again, but yeah, it was fine for this event.
Yeah. And the thing is you can't take everything at... Shadow Yakusoka is literally the best example of this. I'm not Shouta, and I'm not going to just top 8 a tournament that Shouta can top 8 with a Shouta deck. And if you don't see the results correlate a week later, if you don't see people doing well with the deck a week later, it's probably because the deck wasn't good and Shouta was great.
Yeah, and one thing that I think, a data point that people tremendously underuse is Moto data. Because people there are millions of games happening on Magic Online all the time, basically. And the cream will rise to the top on Magic Online because
I have a point on this also. The number of people that tell me that the only reason the X deck does well at X-Men events is because it's cheap on Moto. All right, you can put that into your data and just decide, right? If I just go and click on the top decks in Standard right now, right? I see Jeskai Haley, green-white tokens, black-white aggro, green-red energy, and blue-red control, and Jeskai control, whatever I'm looking at, right? That's what it looks like right now. It's all weird because we're in between formats, between Moto and paper. But yeah, I could probably tell you that green-red energy with Long Tusk Cub and Pummeler, some percentage of it does come from it being the cheapest, but by the same point, some percentage of that deck does well because people just aren't ready for it.
Yeah, and I also think that that's sort of an old, trope that people try to bring out a lot. Aggressive red decks used to be really overrepresented on Magic Online because they were so cheap and people just wanted to play.
But
that hasn't been true in 2 years.
But the thing is there's just more veteran Magic Online players now than there used to be, right? And because of that, when you think about Moto data, for example, it just depends on where you're at in a format, right? Standard is just not going to be that way anymore. It's very possible that when you get into Modern, Burn's going to be more popular than it should be, right? Yeah, because it's a more expensive format. But the longer Modern is on Moto, the less burn players there will be, and less burn is good, because more and more people get into it. They win, they invest, they win, they invest, they win, they invest, right? You have to, and that's good. It's okay to look at that data and say, where is this format at on Moto? But at the same time, you can't just lie to yourself for freaking 8 years about the data.
I mostly feel like the best thing about Magic Online is that just through sheer volume, it sort of takes away like the player skill differentials, where there are some decks, like you're saying, like if you're calling it a Shota deck or whatever, where like some players can win with it, but realistically, like none of us probably can, and that's okay. But I think Moto does a really good job of sort of flattening out that part of the game, because there's just so much volume that, like, if you look at the 5-0s over a very long period of time, you know, it's sort of, there are some good players and some bad ones and everything in between.
So we kind of talked about this just a second ago when we were looking at data while doing this podcast, but how do you decide if data you're looking at isn't actually correct?
Well, there's a couple of ways. One of them is going to be intuition. You're going to have to train your intuition to be like, okay, what is this? This is sort of misleading in some way, because I just know that this isn't true. And then the other is if it's not backed up by other data points. That's another way that you can kind of prove that. If Magic Online is showing that this deck is around but not impressive, but it top-aided 2 tournaments in Europe or something, or like did very well at 2 tournaments in Europe, like, okay, what is causing these to be so different from each other, and what can I find that's sort of the key to that problem, to unlocking, why this is showing up this way?
So a lot of the time that comes down to like things outside of the data, like was there a new card that got added to this deck? Did the metagame change in some way that makes this deck better than it was before? Right? That kind of stuff can affect that a lot. And I think then, in addition to that, you have to look a little bit at just like, okay, so some decks are just so difficult to play that over like a large sample, they're just not going to be good. I think I remember hearing that like when Blizzard nerfed Patron Warrior, its overall win rate was like 39%. Because it was just like so hard to play that no one could actually win with it except for the very best players. But like once, right? But like once you were past that threshold or whatever, it was basically unbeatable. So I think that happens to some extent with a lot of these decks, where like you can have broad data not represent like either your own ability to play a deck or like a great player's ability to play a deck.
I think that one of the other thing, Sorry, I want to actually say something about what you just said. I think that what you said is really important, in that when Wizards announced they're banning a Reflector Mage, they said the reason that we're banning a Reflector Mage, one of the reasons is because, I don't think we addressed this on the podcast, but they said that Blue-White Flash had 0 bad matchups.
They said its worst matchup was Black-Red at 49%. Yeah.
And for those of us who played a ton of Standard, we know that those matchup percentages aren't true, right? That's not reflective as to what actually the matchups of the deck were. What it's reflective of is that there were players learning to play other decks to beat Blue-White that had trouble learning it, right? And because of that, it boosted its win percentages in some areas. A good example of this is Green-Red Aetherworks Marvel. That had a really good matchup against the deck. But what we even said this on the podcast, is that it was very skill dependent. If you didn't know how to play the matchup and how to sequence your spells, you were going to lose to Blue-White like 100% of the time.
Yeah,
you would just never beat
I think
it.
that's just true in a lot of matchups that require tight sequencing and like just playing your lands correctly, playing your spells correctly, understanding board states. Like, not that, everyone's so bad and I'm so great, but like it requires just repetition. And if you're jumping into something, it's just not easy to like. It's not necessarily intuitive to pick up, and it takes a little while.
I actually don't think that it's even just you're so good and so great. So, like, Ollie Antrazi's a really good Magic player, right? He's definitely not, like, one of the top players in the world. Yet, he wins with decks that, like, no one else can win with, right? They call them Ollie decks.
Right, because they're just in his headspace.
Yeah. Matt Kling says the same thing about my decks. Those are Spencer. Like, I just can't win with a Spencer deck. I have no idea what any of these cards do, why they're in here. I don't understand it. And, you know, just talking from personal experience, it's like, to me, it's like, I don't know how you can't win. Like, this deck is great. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. But at the same time, like, that's really important, right? Why can Ollie win with a deck and you can't? And also, how do you incorporate that data into what you're looking at? And the truth is, you don't. Just don't. Either learn how to play Ollie's deck and understand your matchups on your own and bring your own data, or just ignore it. Right? This happens all the time with Jeff Hooglin decks.
Well, and really either way is fine, right?
Yes.
Like there's nothing wrong with nothing embarrassing about saying, "Oh man, he's been doing well with this deck, but this deck looks like a pile to me and I played, 10 matches in playtesting and got crushed."
Yeah.
Like
This happens all the time with lots of decks. It happens with Jeff Hooglin decks, it happens with Ollie decks.
Just random brews, top 8 tournaments
Exactly.
all the time.
Exactly. And it's like, and the thing is like, people will then in volume pick up these decks, and even after those brewers have moved on, people will just hold on to this thing that they loved about the deck, and they won't use data to make their decision. They will just say, I love this, I love what he was standing for, I love what he was doing, and for some reason I have 4 Oath of Jason in my deck. Nobody knows why, but I have it.
Right. They've always been here, and damn it, they will always be here.
Well,
Exactly.
and the thing is that even if the deck is good, like sometimes these decks actually are good. It's fine to take a deck that is good and just say, I don't think this is the deck I should be playing.
And I think that it's important to say to yourself, I love using Jeffin as an example because I think that this is something that he does that people don't accept. When Jeff moves on from a deck, he did it for a reason. Like, regardless of what your opinion of Jeff is as a person, as a brewer, what you think of his decks, if Jeff has moved on from a deck, that's a data point, right? If Ollie has moved on from a deck, that's a data point. Why did they decide that the deck that they just top-8'd a tournament with wasn't good enough anymore?
Right. There has to be something there, right? There's some factor that's playing into that decision, and either you need to deduce what it is and decide how to rack. Maybe moving on from the deck isn't the right decision, but it is something you need to consider. If at some point a lot of people are playing the deck, and then at some point you're the only one playing the deck, then that's information you need to consider.
What was the modern deck that Jeff made super popular?
Kiki Chord?
Kiki Chord. This is a great example. Jeff hasn't been playing Kiki Chord in Modern for a while now. And yet, people still jam the freaking heck out of Kiki Chord. And some people say it's the best deck in Modern. There's no data that represents that, right? But there is data that represents that Jeff no longer thinks that deck is good enough.
Yeah, and Modern is especially the format where this happens.
By the way, the last time that I talked about Kiki Chord on the podcast, I got some flack.
Yeah, you know where to send your hate mail.
Yeah, just send it to me. It's fine. And also, I'm not saying that Kiki Chord is unplayable.
Not again. You learned your lesson.
I didn't say it last time. I
Just
said that
kidding.
but I do think that...
I mean, if you want someone to say that.
But it's an important data point, right? This deck that Jeff had a ton of success with, that Jeff won lots of tournaments with, top-8'd lots of tournaments with, he had moved off of. Yeah, so at that point, you have to say to yourself, what changed? And you can decipher the data, and maybe you come to the conclusion that maybe Jeff's sick of the deck. That's fine, but you need to take that data and make something of it. Let's move on to the next point. How are friends or teammates or testing partners involved in your data personally, Casey?
Well, I mean, it's good to be able to bounce ideas off. Like, hey, did you see this? What did you think of this? I don't fully understand why somebody was doing this. Have you tried testing? I know that you were looking at a deck similar to this. Were you testing this interaction? So just being able to use their experience to supplement your own when sorting through the data.
Michael?
I really like that point, sort of, rather than trying to only test with your friends or like do all your testing in that fashion. I really like being able to sort of use each other as a sounding board, because if you can get sort of more when you're talking to players who you think are good, when you can get a bunch of points where like you're all kind of looking at the same data. So what do you make of this? I mean, we don't need to test 100 games every matchup together to I think give each other valuable information.
Yeah, I think that to that point, I think that there's something to be said about using the data in testing, right? So there's a lot of times that we've identified key cards and key ways to play a matchup that swings a matchup, right? And that's not data that's given to you by looking at deck lists online. That's data you get from playtesting. So it's your job and your opponent's job in your playtesting session, or even in your match of Magic at your F&M, to identify why things are happening in a match and what won games. And that is different data that you don't get from just the internet. And that, to me, is where those things fall in. Because I can read 1,000 articles, listen to 100 podcasts, do anything I want, but until I play some games, I'm just not going to have the same information that I have with my friends.
I like that point too. Sometimes it's hard to understand why the data says something until you just see it happen to you a couple of times.
That's true too.
And I think that like it makes it easier to accept. It makes it easier to figure out what you should accept and what maybe you don't believe is exactly true. Because sometimes data is misleading, right? I mean, it's not always perfect, and I think that just like actually getting to play some games, if you need to test everything, it's just going to take too long, right? I mean, we don't have time to play 100 games every single matchup to make, our own personal thoughts reflect the data perfectly. But if we're sort of like, okay, well, how do you feel about this? And we both feel the same way, and it's not what the data is saying, maybe we can try it out, and either we'll learn quickly that we're both just wrong, or we'll learn that there was something going on with the data that either we still don't understand or that the data was wrong in some way.
Yeah, that's what I always like to say. Like when we're looking at a deck list or something, and then it just does not jive with our knowledge or our intuition, okay, one of us is wrong. I don't know if it's us or
Figure
them.
it out.
Yeah, exactly. Let's figure out which one of us is an idiot.
So, Casey, it's time for the ultimate test.
All right.
You're a data-driven guy.
I like to think so.
I want to wrap this up. Grey Merchant of Asphodel. What does the data say about that card? Honestly, no hyperbole here. If you've been listening to the podcast for a long time, you know that Casey gave Grey Merchant of Asphodel a 0 on our set review. He and I both were advocates that the card was not the best card in the deck, as many people would tell you it was. But what does the data say, and how do you decipher that data?
Well, the data says that when people who played black-white or variations of that deck that didn't actually play that card actually had a higher winning percentage than those that did, but the deck that it went in had an extremely high winning percentage overall, and it certainly played a role in winning those games.
Okay.
You will never be able to twist my arm enough to say that card was good, because it's not, but that there was, looking only at data of the performance of that deck, it would be easy to conclude that that is a good card. However, looking at basically the same deck, just playing any other card in that slot.
Blood Baron of Vescopa specifically.
Yeah, or Obsidat in some versions, but yeah, exactly. Just, you ended up with a much higher win percentage overall by playing cards that actually had their own merit.
I think this is important for a few reasons. The data says a lot of different things here, right? And Grey Merchant of Asphodel, the reason that I go back to it so often is I think that it's something that maybe I'll never get over. Maybe I'll never understand it. And there's a lot of reasons to play Grey Merchant of Asphodel. 1, you get to stay monocolored. 2, your deck becomes cheaper. 3, it's a proven deck. Proven. The deck is good. Hands down, deck is good. Grey Merchant has synergy with Thoughtseize, has synergy with
Underworld connections.
Underworld connections, and can sometimes just pull you out of games that you couldn't have won otherwise. All of those things are true. The data says that And the reason that Team Pantheon played a different deck at the Pro Tour with Black-White without Grey Merchant of Asphodel is because their data said Blood Variant of Biscopa will win me almost the same games most of the time that will pull me out of that I couldn't win because it's harder to deal with and it's just better on its own. 2, it will, it just did everything, right? And Sin Collector did tons, right? The deck just got overall better, yet people still played mono black. People made that decision time and time again. I played one total tournament with black with Grey Merchant of Asphodel. I played black green. Going to that tournament, I said I'm going to keep an open mind, and the entire time I wish that I was playing black white. And the thing is you have to understand that sometimes, even though we will often preach that, sorry, dude, if 10,000 people tell you you're wrong, you're probably wrong. Sometimes you're not. Sometimes you're right. And those 10,000 people are wrong. And if you have the data to back it up and you can prove it, that's when you found a hole in the metagame, that you found a hole in the data, and that's when you should make the best decision possible for you. But you have to prove it in some way, like the Pantheon did when they chose not to play Grey Merchant of Asphodel. No, I'm serious.
No, I agree. It's just, it is funny because it's sort of like almost a meme on the show, right?
It is.
It's that standard was when we were kind of first coming out as a podcast, and we got asked to sign that card a lot of times.
We did.
Like,
I've signed a lot of Grey Merchants.
I signed a lot of them at
The
Grand Prix
Casey
Albuquerque.
said that he wanted to draw an appendage on one, and I told him he couldn't. It's also a lot.
Yeah, and the times that I did it anyway is also a lot.
I don't believe you.
It was usually like stink lines and poop more than like appendages. Something that was like PG, not.
That's terrible.
I told them that I would do it. I said, if you want me to sign this, I'm going to deface it. And they'd say, okay.
It's Brown Merchant of Asphodel.
Oh my gosh, I actually remember you doing this.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I think he actually drew poop on the card.
I did.
Oh my gosh. But I think that what's important here is this can be true in a lot of different ways, right? I use Grey Merchant of Asphodel because it's kind of a joke on the podcast. But, I think that I've identified Scapeshift as this deck that can do that a couple of times. I think that, I think that Sam Black identified Spirit Delver as that one time, right? I don't think that Spirit Delver was ever a correct deck for another tournament ever again.
Yeah, right. That's been true at a lot of Pro Tours and even Grand Prix, where it's like, this deck is nonsense, but it is a silver bullet for this tournament.
Right. And Jeff Hooglin, Ali Antrazi, those guys we just mentioned. How do you think they come up with their deck lists? They do it by doing the things we just talk about.
I think it's some of that, but I think a lot of the really great deck builders, when you look at individual tournaments, a lot of it is about their instincts being phenomenal for single events, and maybe they're not building like the composite best deck in the format, but they can figure out what beats the decks they expect to play, and if they call the metagame right, it's it's really good for them.
Let us know what you think of this topic. It's a broader topic. I really enjoyed this podcast. Leave a comment, whether you're listening on YouTube, on the app, go to constructivecriticism.com, just leave a comment. Go to the Facebook group, leave a comment. Tell us what you think about this episode. We'd love to hear it. Don't forget that you can go to patreon.com/ccmtg, become a patron of the show. Our next goal, I actually don't know. What is our next goal, guys?
Robot dinosaurs.
Robot dinosaurs is not our next goal.
It's our most important goal.
Our next goal is cast tokens. We are 57% of the way there. So if you can donate any amount you see fit. This is something we talked about doing on the podcast, so I'm just going to do it right now. If every single person listening to the show donated $1 per month, just $1 per month, I could quit my job. I could pay these guys to do the podcast. We could do tons of content at $1 per month. If you have $1, it would change your lives if every single one of you did that. If half of you did that, I could quit my job. That is how many listeners that we have. So if you have the funds, you have $1 per month. Constructivecriticism.com/ccmtg. We have so many things that we want to do. But-
Patreon.com.
What did I say?
I mean, you could try to go to constructivecriticism.com/ccmtg.
Thank you so
It
much, Mike.
I mean,
Patreon.com/ccmtg. $1 per month or more. Everything is appreciated. But like I said, if every one of you goes and donates $1 per month, it would. If half of you did it, it would legitimately change our lives.
Yeah, and honestly, if you don't want to, the show's always going to be free. But if you are on the fence, but have maybe chosen not to do Patreon in the past, feel free. Please leave us a comment, a tweet, a carrier pigeon, a smoke signal. Why? What you would like to see out of the show to make it worth it to you.
a more smoke signal would be easily the best way to communicate that.
I just feel like it would be irresponsible if that many people just started bonfires. I'm just saying.
Yeah, and also like smoke signals don't travel very far, so you'll have to
Go out on the front door.
record it on YouTube.
No, you can Snapchat us a picture of your more smoke signals.
Now I have to make a CCMTG Snapchat. Thanks a lot, Michael. I appreciate that.
It's gonna be great.
It's gonna be huge.
Huge bonfires.
That's a nickel for you, Donald Trump. So go to patreon.com/ccmtg. Our next goal is tokens. Michael, why don't you announce your token?
I asked Casey very kindly, not this Casey, but the Casey who does the artwork for
a
our
different,
tokens.
worse Casey. But go on.
I call him Fish. Every time somebody calls him Casey, I get confused. I've known him for years.
Me
His name
too.
has always been Fish.
But it's also Casey.
Allegedly.
Not on my watch.
All right. Well, I asked him to make me a goat token.
Why did you choose a goat token?
Well, first of all, it's so I can be a member of Manny's cult.
You realize that people are going to literally sacrifice you to Manny.
That's fine with me.
Makes him the star of the show.
Isn't Manny the star of the show?
He's like, no, the sacrifice is the star. That's what people are there to see. Like,
All right.
maybe you can maybe Romeo or Juliet is the star. Like, it's tough to say which one of those is really the star, but like, you need them both.
So go to patreon.com/ccmtg. We are 57% of the way there to our cast tokens. $1 per month, guys, and you really could change our lives.
It's also because Trading Post is great.
I mean,
what?
That's a good. Hold on. I will not stand for the desecration of the name Trading Post on this podcast. You owe me push-ups, bro. You owe me push-ups.
No, definitely not doing
How
that.
about goat tokens?
You can also find us on social media. You can find the podcast at CCMTG. You can find us every week on constructivecriticism.com, mtgcast.com, and youtube.com/c/ccmtg. You can find Casey on Twitter at ccbloodthirst. You can find him on Facebook in the Facebook group. And you can find him in his apple orchard making a new, improved cider for Spencer. He's actually developing a new cider just for me.
Yeah, it has pee in it.
That was so gross. Where can people find you?
Basically those places you just said.
Why did you monopolize that, of all things?
Yeah, no point beating a dead horse on that.
Michael, where can people find you?
Are you sure you don't want to tell him?
Yeah, I just want to talk about Casey's apple orchard.
All right.
It showed up in my time up. Also, I found it so funny that, like, of all the things that I've said jokingly about the show, Casey's apple orchard was met with, like, oh man, I'm, like, really sad you're quitting the show. Good luck with your apple orchard. And I was like, why is this believable? How is this something people possibly believe?
Also find
The
me in
thing
Casey's
is-
apple orchard.
The
You
thing
can
is
find
the
me.
grilled cheese thing was true. I think he had literally made like 3 grilled cheeses in a row in like the 3 days before I said that for the first time. But like, I don't know that Casey's ever been to an apple orchard.
I have not. Nor
Yeah.
would I ever.
When Casey buys an apple orchard, I will go and visit. You can find me there. You can find me being sacrificed to Manny, and you can find me in the Facebook group or on Twitter at MagicMikeMTG.
To be fair, I also said that like you were moving to like New Hampshire, to where you had inherited your apple orchard.
Oh man, that sounds so good. Why did you turn that down, Casey?
It was like this such long-winded, obvious joke, but like I don't know. I guess I sold it well. I mean, maybe tweets are hard to read sarcasm. I don't know.
I mean,
It can't have been that long. It was 160 characters.
Yeah, I'm sure it was a picture of like a note.
I don't remember what the specifics were. And also,
find-
I'm pretty sure it was on April Fool's Day.
Oh, it was. I forgot about that.
Like, this is the low-hangingest of low-hanging, like, obvious this isn't true.
Obvious.
Also,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Boom. Yeah, so when I leave you guys to go join an orchard, I'm going to make sure that I do it on April 1st, so you'll just be really confused.
You can find me on Facebook at Spencer Stephen Howland. You can find me on Twitter at Spencer13H. You can find my YouTube content every week. I do a deck tech as well as a Wednesday Night Warrior is a weekly video series that I do. I try and do a video with Matt every week. This week we actually recorded a video of green-white tokens versus the Kevin Jones Jessica C. Healy deck. Green-white tokens won 3-2, but the file was corrupted on my computer and I could not post the video. So I do apologize for that, but we will be back with more videos and more content. And you can also check out every week on the website. We now have a weekly finance article on Finance Friday. And then we have another writer who's looking to find out what he wants to write for the website every week. So we look forward to those guys. Just want to give them a shout out. Check them out at constructivecriticism.com. Just click on articles and see the latest stuff. You can also find the limited podcast every week, limited time only, on constructivecriticism.com and mtgcast.com. Let's move on. Oh, before we move on, don't forget you can join the conversation by joining the Facebook group that we keep talking about. Just ask for an ad, and I'll be happy to add you. And if you're selling sunglasses, just let me know beforehand so I can be prepared for it.
Get the first pair.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to do. Hashtag would that be good. Hashtag would that be good is our Twitter outreach program. Every week on the show, we read the tweets that you send in with hashtag would that be good. First up, we have at Oasis Games SLC, at CCMTG, hashtag would that be good. I don't know what this is about, but yeah, I assume it would be good.
Yeah, it is good, Mason.
If I would click on it, Mason, at SOV Mason, it says when you're about to make your first purchase from Oasis Games LC, but can't remember at CCMTG code, so you have to turn on an episode. Hashtag would that be good. So the codes are CCMTG and would that be good? Funny, it's the podcast and the segment we're on. Fun fact.
Yeah. I would also like
Is that a fun fact?
when
I
we
thought it was fun while I was reading the tweet.
when we first started posting the podcast on Reddit.
Oh my gosh. What
There
is
was-
CC?
Yeah, they were like it was like STEEESTIEMTG. It's like, what is STCMTG? Nothing. That's not anything.
It's so funny too because it's like it's literally our Twitter handle. It's at CCMTG, Constructed Criticism Magic the Gathering.
And so that's why Spencer says it like
So-
that now. CCMTG.
No, it was actually so funny. So
We got it,
We
though.
actually
We got
got
there.
a hate email from the guy that left that comment. I'm pretty sure. I don't know if it was from him. I'm assuming it was from him, but it was like. So I saw you the comment on Reddit was like very kind, and you guys were rude about it on the next episode. And all I did on the next episode was say the letter C, MTG is the code. I didn't even mention the Reddit comment. And I got like verbally assaulted for like being condescending. And I didn't think I was condescending. I'm being condescending now because I got a rude email. But like, come on.
Yeah, I mean, also, like, if you're going to be that sensitive, don't say stupid things. I don't know.
I just wouldn't say anything at all.
To be fair, I don't know that I've ever talked poorly about an email I've ever received. We get a lot of emails from the fans, so never hesitate to email. You can email us at ccmtg.info@gmail.com, which is funny that he knew the email but couldn't figure out the code. Sorry.
One step at a time.
Maybe I'm bitter. I'm not sure. At Spencer13H, at CCMTG, intro music, hashtag would it be good. Manny, shut up. I didn't put the intro music on because I got a new laptop, and you can catch on fire.
Boom.
But I never reply to tweets meanly, and I'm never bitter, and I'm never condescending.
Oh, to Manny? I'm always mean to Manny.
Yeah, I'm basically exclusively mean to Manny.
To be fair, I'm pretty sure that like when Manny like joined the team, right? And like he was asking Casey for advice, he like verbally assaulted Casey when Casey gave him advice that he asked for.
That's true.
Like just words that I can't say on the podcast. So I think Manny deserves every bit of it. And if you see him interact with the fans now that he's not on the podcast, he just cusses people out and like he's a great guy. I love you, Manny. At Spencer H, Oath of a Johnny, take a shower, hashtag with the good.
Because you stink.
First of all, that's not what he's saying. If you
Yes,
have
it is.
a long-time listener, that's probably true. If you're a long-time listener of the podcast, you know that oftentimes when I'm taking a shower, I'm thinking about magic cards. I'm singing specifically Simple Plan while thinking about magic cards. Fun fact. In case you want to know about, now you know about my shower habits and Michael's shower habits. Fun fact. Those are things you know now. But
I just take regular showers, but I do it about twice a day.
five times a day.
That's just not true.
But no, yeah, I think that 0 green white tokens deck. We're playing Oath of a Johnny this weekend.
Yeah.
The
'Cause
correct
that card
number.
should take a bath.
Yeah,
Or a shower.
So maybe
Or jump in a lake
Yeah,
with
it
a weight
stinks.
attached to its neck. Whatever.
So to be fair, I do love at Keywords Follower. I think he's a great guy. But maybe Matt, you should take a shower and rethink your situation. Boom. No, not really. I don't know.
so much aggression.
I don't know. I'm in a mood today.
That card's just not good.
I think
that's
it's not
just-
good, but I am always willing to be wrong.
No, let's move on. It's not good. I'm not willing to be wrong on this
I'm
one.
willing to be wrong.
No.
I mean, I'm never willing to be wrong. It doesn't stop it from happening. But I don't think that that's what's going to happen on this one.
Yeah, I'm not that worried about Oath of a Johnny coming back to bite me.
Goblin Test Pilot is now a creature - Goblin Wizard Pilot. Hashtag would be good. That's from at Agent of Blight or Agent _ Blight. Joshua Collier.
Or is it Agent of Be-Light?
Shut up. Inside jokes aren't funny on the podcast.
I disagree. I think 66% of people don't agree with that.
The ones that are recording.
Yeah.
Anyway. The high five behind my head was a little excessive, but I accept. Stop it. Goblin Wizard Pilot. That's a great creature type. I do think
What was he
that's
before?
Probably just a goblin. He got upgraded, though.
Oh, he was just Goblin Wizard, right? Because they just added creature type pilot.
Oh, sure.
Oh my gosh, that is good. Hashtag that would be great.
Does anything buff pilots or have anything synergy like that? No, right?
No. Coat of Arms.
Boom.
Deck. Building.
Adaptive automaton.
Look it up.
The new adaptive automaton.
Mimic. What is the
Metallic mimic.
Metallic mimic.
Boom.
I'm so happy right now. I actually am giddy with joy. This tells you how big of nerds you are about Magic the Gathering when you get excited that a creature's creature type that just doesn't matter was retroactively changed. Like, here's the thing about Goblin Test Pilot. He's a terrible pilot. The fact that he gets the title pilot is a little excessive.
Well, now you can
Isn't
build
like
a
an
pilot
O2 with
deck
haste,
with.
right?
Now you can build a
that kills
pilot deck.
himself.
Yeah.
No, you can
Only
build a
half the
pilot
time.
deck with Cavern of Souls.
Boom.
I'm just going to name every card that gets benefits from pilots. That seems like we do.
Those are the 4.
Constructive criticism.
Pilots, the podcast.
Pilots.
That's for.
This is our pilot show. People have asked to hear it. Here it is.
Wait, hold on. Because I'm looking at Gather right now. Oh, it did change. I'm so happy. So, for those who don't know, Goblin Test Pilot.
You don't need to know. Spencer,
No.
don't read this card. No one cares.
No, it's great. It's 1 red, 1 blue, and 1 for a Goblin Pilot Wizard creature. You can tap it, and it deals 2 damage to target creature or player chosen at random.
Yeah, if you give it Shroud, then it gets a lot better because it can't target itself.
If you give,
Still target you.
If you give it and you shroud.
You, it, and all of your creatures shroud.
Privileged position?
Boom.
Is that Shroud or Hexproof?
Doesn't matter. Broke it.
At Spencer13H, hashtag let it be good. It's official. Star Wars: The Last Jedi is the next chapter of the Skywalker saga this December. Hashtag The Last Jedi.
I mean, it has to be the last chapter of the saga, or else it's kind of a lie.
Nope. There's another episode.
Maybe it's
Well,
like maybe
should
it's like
learn
I'm the
what
current
last
Jedi.
means.
He was the last Jedi.
The Last Jedi before me.
Yeah.
So here's the thing about this. So I did see, the Star Wars is really famous, for those who don't know, for the
That's true.
the beginning sequence where words start scrolling up the screen, the word crawl as they call it, and I saw one that said Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, and it was please don't let Luke die, please don't let Luke die, please don't let Luke die, and I thought it was really funny. Yeah, hashtag that would be good. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. In fact, my uncle gave me all of his Star Wars novels from when he was in high school, and one of them was Splinter of the Mind's Eye, which is huge in Star Wars history. It's actually not canon. It wasn't canon the second Heir to the Empire, Empire Strikes Back came out, but it's a huge part of Star Wars history and like how George Lucas envisioned Star Wars going if he didn't get a big budget. So it's like it's pretty cool. So I'm really excited about that. So yeah, hashtag that would be good. I'm really excited about the new Star Wars. I literally have a dog named Opie, so like obviously you know how I feel about that. Watching The Bachelor before doing PT testing with the amigos, hashtag that would be good. We were literally watching The Bachelor before doing this podcast.
We use loosely.
Did you watch it?
I mean, the 3 minutes I was here, yes, I did.
There you go.
I like to ask them questions when The Bachelor's on, just about what's happening. That brings some joy into my life.
Yeah, the whole... Here's the thing. I don't like The Bachelorette. I actually just don't ever watch it with my wife. When The Bachelorette is on, I don't watch it.
Is it because of ratios?
What?
Is it because of ratios?
No comment. I don't...
That's all you need to say. It's fine.
I don't watch every episode of The Bachelor. I just find it not interesting. But Bachelor in Paradise is legitimately my guilty pleasure. So... if you don't know what that is,
why is that a guilty pleasure? I mean, it sounds mostly like people in swimsuits. It doesn't sound like that guilty a pleasure.
I mean, it's like, it
is the way he watches it.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll see you guys all next week. We are excited to share with you what our learnings, and weirdly, we get another SCG next week. So, you know, that's exciting. It's something brand new that. Why are we giving high fives behind my head for the rest of forever?
Because that was
Because
great.
you don't like it, apparently.
It's just a new thing, apparently. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll see you guys all next time.
Magic, 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 magic.